Hey, this is Irvin Griffin, and I'm gonna go ahead and get and do this quick Royal Rumble review at my personal feelings on this Rumble. This is definitely middle of the road. This has to be a mixed bag. But if people want to call it the worst Royal Rumble card ever, I will not argue with you. But anyway, let's hop into it. First off, we have Seth Rollins versus Roman Reigns for the WWE Universal Championship. I must admit, the mind games of Seth and the storytelling here was fabulous. Him coming out with his old Shield gear to the music coming through the crowd. I mean, these two really played off of each other very well. I mean, the matchup was good, was very good, but the psychology and the storytelling here was excellent. Roman Reigns struggling with the pass from the Shield, and in a way, kind of, even though he lost the match, he still retained the title. But in a way, he kind of put it to bed by getting his revenge on Seth. In the same way that Seth destroyed the Shield, Roman got his revenge. Because remember, it was actually Roman Reigns that Seth hit with that chair. And we never really got to see a resolution to that until last night. So, for this, even though I know some people didn't like the DQ ending and everything, I actually was okay with it. This was good. This was good. The storytelling, the psychology is what really carried it. I mean, the actual physical stuff, I mean, it's Seth and Roman. They have always had good matches. So, no surprise there. But I think this is what their best match in terms of storytelling, in terms of psychology. So, very good opener and very good way to open the Royal Rumble card. Now we're going to skip to the Raw Women's Championship match between Piper Niven, yeah, I know she's called Dewdrop, versus Becky Lynch. I must admit, the match itself was not that bad. Actually, I thought it was pretty good, but the crowd was dead, which was partially because they were either bored or whatever. And it was also due to the fact that, from what I understand, the WrestleMania sign, due to Ronda's pyro, actually caught on fire during the match. And that distracted a lot of fans from the match. But the match itself was actually not that bad. In fact, I thought it was actually decent. Was it a 5-star classic? No. But I would get at least a 2.5 to 3-star match. And I must admit, at least Becky Lynch is a champion that's willing to put people over, even when she retains the title. So it's an okay match. It's not a rewatchable thing, but I would recommend at least one watch for this match. Now for the mixed tag match with Beth Phoenix and her husband Edge versus The Miz and his Mrs. Maurice Ouellette. Well, Maurice Mazarian now. And this match ended up being better than it had any right to be, though I do think it went a little long. And the thing is, the crowd, people was like, say they were bored and stuff. No, I don't know what match you was watching. The crowd, while they weren't hot for it, they were kind of into it. So, no, this match was better than it had any right to be. The only complaint I really got about it is that, number one, it went way longer than it should have. And number two, the only other complaint is I would have no problem with Edge and Beth Phoenix going over if not for the fact that Edge had already won it day one. If not for that fact, I would have been okay with them winning. And I said, even going into the match, that this match only makes sense for Edge and Beth Phoenix to win if Edge had lost at day one. Had he had lost in day one, due to Maurice or something, then the end of this match would have made sense. But being that he didn't lose, I personally thought Miz and Maurice should have went over. But then again, they probably didn't want this feud to go long. So in a way, at this point, there's no reason for these teams, for these husband and wife factions to even interact with each other at this point. There's no point in continuing this. To me, as far as I'm concerned, the feud's done. So, with that said, okay match. Definitely better than it had any right to be. And to this match, Bobby Lashley versus Brock Lesnar. A dream match we have been waiting at least 10 years or more for. And let me say, while it was as hard-hitting as expected, it didn't suck, but I'll be honest, I expected more. I expected way more than what we got. But the ending, I expected that. It's not surprised at all. I expected this because they want to finish the story with Brock Lesnar, Roman Reigns, and of course Paul Heyman. And you can bet it's going to be finished at WrestleMania with possibly maybe Drew McIntyre involved. But I say if you're going to do this, if you're going to finish this story, it should be just, even though it'll be for the umpteenth time, it should be just Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns. But as for Bobby Lashley, now you got the problem of who is Bobby Lashley going to face at WrestleMania? Especially with, the result of the men's Royal Rumble, which I'm about to get to right now. Now, to the men and women's Royal Rumbles, I'm not going to waste a lot of time on them. The women's Royal Rumble, of course, number one was Sasha Banks. I personally, not surprised she didn't win it, but I would have thought that she would have went longer than what she did. Mickie James was a pleasant surprise. They not only let her come out with the Impact Wrestling Championship, they actually let her come out to Hardcore Country rather than her WWE theme, which I thought was a nice touch. Sarah Logan, of course, making an appearance, and of course you have the connection with Liv Morgan. The Bellas did their thing, which I will go ahead and say right now. This women's Rumble match, while not the best, was definitely the more fun and the more better of the two. And to me, who saves it? Sasha Banks in the very beginning holds it up. Then after that, the crowd, after she got eliminated, you could hear the energy just leave the crowd. They were dead after that until Mickie James showed up. Then I would have to say the Bellas along with Ronda Rousey pretty much, and y'all know how I feel about Ronda Rousey. I can't stand her. But I give credit where it's due. Her showing up along with the Bellas and Mickie James pretty much saved this women's Royal Rumble. Now, Ronda Rousey winning, I personally would have preferred Sasha to win because I believe she deserves that accolade. But Ronda Rousey winning sort of makes sense. Because if you think about it, if you go back and look at WrestleMania 35 at the end of that, and I actually did mention that in the Royal Rumble previews, she kind of got screwed a little bit in that triple threat with her and Charlotte for both Raw and SmackDown women's titles. She kind of got screwed. Well, ain't no kind of, she did. She got screwed because her shoulder was clearly off the mat during that count, that 3 count, which it should have been restarted, but she actually has a gripe. I'll be very shocked if Ronda Rousey does not go after Becky Lynch. She should. It would make sense since it was Becky that pinned her for the championship. And quite frankly, that three count was very disputed. If you go back and look at it, if they haven't edited it out, That 3 count was very disputed. But the women's, even with its flaws, was definitely more fun and more enjoyable than the men. The men's was, first of all, I'm not mad about the ending. Yes, yeah, certain members of Club Atlantis, well, one member, talking to you, Regina, sorry, was pretty ticked off about Brock Lesnar winning and the way they won. But I expected this. The only the only issue I have, they should have shown how he got into the Royal Rumble. Like, like remember that time back in the 2005 Royal Rumble when Kurt Angle took Nunzio's number and entered the Royal Rumble? They should have had a moment like that with Brock backstage, showing that. Then it would have actually made sense how all of a sudden he's in the Royal Rumble. It would have made sense. I mean, you might as well not even bother showing it now because it's like after the fact. But anyway, my issue with this Royal Rumble, it was so boring. The men's, this has to be one of the worst men's Royal Rumbles ever. I ain't gonna say it's the worst, but it's one of the worst. Except for AJ Styles. And I'll be honest, I found Omos mildly interesting. Except for those two. Bad Bunny, who's not even a real professional wrestler. And the surprise entrance of Drew McIntyre, who was not expected to be back for this. Except for them. This thing was so boring. I mean, for real, if I was not watching with the other members of Club Atlantis, I would have went to sleep. That would have been like the instant NyQuil for the night. I probably would have woke up until well after it was over. I mean, it was boring. I'm sorry, I know I keep repeating myself, but the men's Royal Rumble match was so dull. It was so dead. The crowd was reflected that because they were dead for it, save a few spots. I mean, this has to be the worst men's Royal Rumble ever. Overall card, if I was to give this card a grade, it's a C minus. It's a C. It's a C at best. It's a C minus. Because I know some people didn't like Ronda Rousey winning, but it made sense. It made sense. Well, actually, both her and Brock winning made sense. But at the same time, I think I'm a little better about how it got there with Ronda over how it got there with Brock. But if you're going to criticize how Brock got there, you got to criticize Ronda too, how she got there. So you got to go even both ways. But at least the women's Royal Rumble match was actually fun. And on a side note, that elimination of Melina early on was, from what I understand, was not supposed to happen. It was actually a botch on Melina's part. And unfortunately, it was caught on camera, so they had to go with it. So, yeah, it's a bad break for Melina. Man, that had to be embarrassing. But overall, I give this card a C minus. But what's your thoughts on this Royal Rumble? Stay warm out there. I'm out.